Hi, and welcome to the DataLink Budgeting, Allocation, and Resource Management tutorial. Today we're going to talk about allocations versus expenditures by program, by district. We'll take a look at the enacted budget. We'll look at encumbrances with expenditures, some high-level personal service dollars and operating expense dollars. We'll take a look at our OE and encumbrance report, our project summary report that has very detailed expenditure down to an object code level and a unit. We'll take a look at tracking overhead costs for capital outlay, employee timesheet charging. For those that are managing the maintenance budget, we'll cover the maintenance dashboards. And then we're going to take a look at our 118 expenditures for the maintenance program. So let's go ahead and get started. For those of you that have never logged into DataLink, you can find it on the on-ramp. You can use either the web apps or go directly to CTPass. Once you click on CTPass, you'll notice that we have the link right below Prism. You click on that, and it brings you into the main dashboard. Now you'll be logged in with your S number. You'll want to check the date for when was the last time an actual data load. It happens every single night. If any issues have occurred with the nightly processing, the data will be reflected with that last update date. We also have tutorial information and other videos located on our DataLink Advantage Ops Support Center page. You click that link, you'll come in and you'll find additional resources. We have a how to use basic navigation tutorial for those that have never used at all and just want to get a high level use case scenario, how to filter and drill down. Today's topic is very specific, like I mentioned, with resource management. So feel free to use the other tutorials for specific content. We have another video for basic navigation for project reporting as well. And as we continue to add videos, they'll be housed here under the online video tutorials. We have frequently asked questions. We have a data dictionary for some of our acronyms that have been spelled out for our users. And for those that are going to be using these reports for budgeting versus actual, we have a toggle button that's built into our calculations, and the rules that go with those responsibilities from both the program view and the district view can be found here under the toggle button rules. It's a Word document, but it actually explains how that toggle button is actually including or excluding expenditures both at a program level and at a district level. And this is critical to managing a program budget. So feel free to take a look at the rules that go in behind the toggle button. As we move through some of the reports, I'll be using that toggle button to turn things on and off, whether it's a program or a district view. Okay, so to get back to the main page, you just click the button to go back. It'll take you back to the main page. So our very first home page is an actual budget to actual charting and graphing, quick snapshot based on district. And you'll notice up here at the top, we can actually search by appropriation category, appropriation, PEC class. Here's the toggle button if we want to choose a program versus a district, or the all button. And the all button simply just does not include or exclude anything. It just basically leaves everything as additional allocations with expenditures, and no formulas have been calculated into the all button. We also have a filter here that lets you choose by fund or by district. So at a very high level, you can check your program and or your district. So if I was interested in last year's budget to get a full picture of allocations and expenditures, I would probably need to use the appropriation 21 star, comma, and then we have SB1 18505 21. Now, for those districts that may also be getting additional support money for, say, 96501, you may also need to include that appropriation. And the reason why you're going to have to spell out the appropriation is because the appropriation category no longer rolls all up to 1920 or 2021 appropriations because of SB1. And because of the 96, 501, and let's say you had 21 support money as well, because the appropriation category rolls up to this beginning of the fiscal year instead of the ending of 21-21, this can no longer be used. So what you have to do is delete this, run your appropriations, which you have to know what program is getting allocations down to each district, and then run your appropriations in order to get a true actual budget to actual expenditure look for your program or your district. Now, again, you can search a specific PEC class within your district, but I'm going to stay high level for this chart. And we're just going to take a look at, we'll just pick on a district here. We'll take a look at District 4. Now, as I hover over this chart, you can see over here to the right, this panel over here is going to change. So if I go back to District 4, you're going to see in the top, if I move my mouse over just slightly, there we go. Now we can see total allocation for District 4. That's going to be PS and OE combined. It's going to tell you allocations for last year, total expenditures, and remaining balance. So they came in last year at about 93.6% spent. And then it breaks down PS allocation versus operating expense allocation. And you can see how much was spent on PS, the percent, the dollars, the remaining, and the same goes for the allocation. Now, if you're interested in using the chart and drilling down from the chart, what you can do is just click on the chart, and it'll actually take you to our budget to actual page, and it brings forward all of the appropriations as well. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to the chart. Now, when I go back, it's going to clear everything out. You just put in your appropriations again if you want. The difference for the fund versus the district, if I was a program, let's say I'm capital outlay, and I want to take a look at last year's information. And again, I have to know all the appropriations. I don't know all of them off the top of my head, but I'm going to assume to do that. So for capital last year, by simply choosing that appropriation and the program 2010, now this program include and exclude comes into play. This is marked for district, but if you're going to look at your total budget, you want to switch this to the program look. There are certain things that a program has to include, and there's certain things, both object classes and object codes, that a program does not include in their total final budget. So use those toggle buttons so that the calculations behind the scenes are done for you. Now, switching to program, we can take a look now by district, or I can switch it by fund. Okay, so this is a really great way to just kind of check how is the program doing without actually getting into all the lower level details and then having to export it to Excel and then formalize it, summarize it back up in, say, a pivot table or a pivot chart or even just an Excel chart. Use your dashboards and your built-in features to take snapshots of really quick financial analysis. So if you can see 2010, it's now going to break down the Highway 400042 versus the federal versus the SB1, and then the trade corridor enhancement, a little bit of TCRF, small TCIF, like smaller. And if these charts are too small for you, you can hover over it and it makes it a little bigger. Go a little bigger if you want, so that you can actually kind of see the dollars a little bit better. And then when you want to reset your zoom, you simply reset. You can download the chart to a JPEG. It'll open up the chart here. And you can then copy and paste that into a Word or a email if you prefer. Okay, so that's a really high level how to use the charts and graphs. from the main page. Now, we're going to go ahead and go directly to the budget to actual view. It's going to split a little bit lower level. We're going to get into object classes of how the money was actually allocated at an object class level and down to a expenditure level, both encumbrances, and it will break down PS and OE. So let's go over to our budget to actual page. So up here, you're going to go to general accounting. You're going to slide down to our budget to actual page. We're going to go ahead and slide over to budget to actual. Okay. Now within this view, we have, or this report, I should say, we have several views. You can stay at a high level program. You can add the district, object class, program and district, or you can get all three, program, district, and object class. This is probably the most popular view, so I'm going to use that one today. You also can look at things both from a appropriation category, a fiscal year, and or a period. So if I want to look at all of the appropriation category, inception to date, that's going to go back as far as expenditures started through today, today's information, then I'm going to use my appropriation filtering here. So I'm going to use last year's budget, 21, 18, 505, 21. I'll just check to see if we have the 501 as well. And I'm going to go ahead and pick a program. I'm going to pick 2010. And I'm going to go ahead and now choose that program button here. And I'm going to search. So what this does is it breaks down how your allocation was expended. The expenditures are going to break down based on the object class, the district, the appropriation, and the fund type. And what you can do is you can take this report to Excel if you want, and then you can pivot it different ways. You can use these reports to interactively ask questions about specific object classes and drill down to lower levels. Maybe you want to just ask a specific question about an object class like travel or A&E. You can use your filters here to ask additional questions without having to take everything to Excel and summarize your information. So in the grid here below, you'll notice that we've got your personal service dollar expenditures and your hours. But if it's an object class that is for operating expense, if you keep scrolling, you're going to start to see your general expense here, how much was allocated to the district by funds and appropriation, and then some expenditures as well. So if I used this row here as an example, District 9 got object class 11, general expense. They were given $119,000 last year. They actually encumbered $14,000. That's what they have left. I don't know how much they actually encumbered throughout the year. That's the current encumbrance balance, and then the expenditures as well. Okay. Now, if you are a district, you would want to add in your district here specifically. And again, you're just going to look at, I just want to look at my district for capital for last year's budget and expenditures, and then I choose the district toggle button, and I go ahead and research that data. Okay. So different questions going to give you different answers, right? So now looking at one district for one program, you can see the total allocation for labor versus what was expended, how much was operating expense allocation, current open and balance encumbrance, along with operating expense here, okay? Now, from here, if you're researching and you have additional questions, maybe you want to know who spent this $130 against the stormwater money, okay? So you can drill down anything in highlighted teal blue. If you click on the 130, it's going to break it down to the accounting journal. And what the accounting journal is going to do is going to show you who spent that money. So if you scroll over here to the right, you're going to see that it was a Cal Card payment to Lowe's. Okay, if I keep scrolling, it's going to give you what unit number charged it, 4210, engineering services, what object code was used within general object class 11, so it was 044. I keep scrolling, a lot more information here, and then all the way to the end has the total expenditures of $130.37. Now you are going to see the debits and credits in as it moves from accrued expenditures or an encumbrance 6150 posting code as it liquidates and moves to what we call the cash 9,000 expenditures. You will see the debits in and the debits out, but the grand total of the cash expended was 130.37. Okay. We're going to go ahead and go back to the summary here. Now, if you're going to want a detailed report down to the object code level, you're not going to want to come in here and drill down, drill down, drill down. I'm going to show you later on in this tutorial a report that we built that incorporates your budget for support, all of by issue number, expenditures down to the fund appropriation, the project ID, and the object code level. So I will show you that report that can be used as a flat file to be exported to Excel. But use your budget to actual report for a very high level questions and answers without having to drill down to the accounting journal to see all of those details. So let's go ahead and use this report, but maybe we want to do a quarterly look versus a inception to date. Now, up here, if you change this to period, you can choose a specific date range of, I only want July to say September. That's fine. You're going to get your information, but you're only going to get your information that occurred in that time period. So if allocations were loaded, let me go ahead and load this up here. If allocations were loaded in July, you're going to see that data loaded. That's great. We're going to go to September through, let's go to September and search again. Then you're not going to see, oops, I went too far. I need to go to July of 2021. Now this is your fiscal range period. It's telling you fiscal year 2021. We're going back in time to month 1 of calendar month July of calendar year 2020 through July 2021, month 3, September. Let me go ahead and hit search on that again. Okay, so you're going to get some allocations loaded, but you may not have everything loaded, and maybe not even until October, who knows. But when you use your fiscal period, just know that you're only going to get transactions that occurred in that time period. So be very careful when you're running these reports by fiscal period, because a lot of times your full budget is loaded in July. And if I was doing this from a December, let's go look at this from a December look. Let's go 2021. December, let's say I'm going to go December to, I don't know, let's go to March. I was doing December to March. Okay, you're only going to see what happened in that time frame. And in that time frame for District 9, you're going to see they actually took a allocation decrease. So if you want to keep a true budget to actual reports, you really need to stay on the appropriation look, and you want to go inception to date from that date range of July. Let's go, actually fiscal year, no, we'll leave it on this. We'll leave it here. We're going to go through current. We're going to take out the appropriation category. And the reason why we delete it is because of the appropriation. Remember, these two don't roll up to the 21, so we have to delete that. And then you would go through open, really, current You can actually go to open if you really wanted to, because you're still spending money against last year, even currently today. So even though we got data as of 8/22, we're still spending expenditures against those encumbrances for last year. So if you ever need to do a true budget to actual on an appropriation, you want to stay on this view, you want to get rid of your appropriation category, and you want to go through current open data for a true budget to actual. Okay, so the other thing that you can do is if you are tracking your pre-encumbrances at the district level, you might want to turn on your show pre-encumbrance. That's going to include any money that's hitting the posting code 6155 for current year pre-encumbrances that have not actually become a contract. And this becomes really critical towards the end of the year when DPAC is actually executing contracts towards June. You might want to keep an eye on how the budget is doing with those pre-encumbrances that are still not executed to a full encumbrance posting code 6150. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and take that off. We're going to talk a little bit more about a program versus the district. So if I take out the district here and I still stay with a program look, I'm going to choose program. Maybe now I just want to look at a specific fund type, and we'll just pick on CSB1, and then I can change my appropriation. T1 and search. Okay. Now I can answer a very high level question. Well, how much money did we actually allocate to 3290, 1850521? It's going to give you the breakdown here for allocations for personal service dollars and operating expense, and then how much money is included in the encumbrances and the expenditures. Okay. All right. Use your filters to answer as best you can, and just get quick answers. From a detailed perspective, if you're going to need to run a really large detailed expenditure report, that's when that project summary report is going to come into play a little bit later. I'll show you that. All right, so while we're in here, if you're tracking allocations, there is a view called allocation detail. And we're going to go ahead and run all of capital for last year. Okay. And again, there could be more appropriations for support. I'm not sure. Let's just use those three for today. Okay, so we ran all the details for the allocation file. And what I like to do is I like to keep this sorted. You can sort any of these labels, ascending or descending order. You can, whichever you prefer. I'm just going to click it once, and I'm going to sort it with the highest date on top. Actually, that went the other way. Let's do the other way. Let's see. So 7/19 of 2021 was the last time any actual expenditure adjustments were made to the 21 budget, okay? And it looks like, you know, some money was taken away or swapped, I should say, with districts. You can see it here. You're going to be able to see the issue numbers, the description of what was happening. They were transferring some funds. And then you're going to see the entire district and object class details, okay? So that's at a very high level for program capital. If I was a district, again, I would just pick on a district and I'm tracking my own. I'm going to be checking this probably daily. Honestly, there's so many allocation changes that come through from the program down to the district, and from the district swapping with other programs and districts, not programs, but other districts for fund types. So I'm always going to be looking daily to see what has changed in my budget. And it's going to give you the document ID. It's going to give you who did it, the last user ID number, the date that it was initiated. It's going to give you the budget name, like I said, the description, the issue number, and then what happened. Was it an increase or a decrease to either the PS or the OE allocations? Okay, and then you can see the total allocation for PS and for OE as well. So this is a really great report if you're managing a district program budget or a program budget statewide. All right, so that's a little bit about the allocation. I will show you the help content here. It's important for you to get familiar with the include and exclude. I mentioned it earlier when we were looking at the expenditure questions and answers under the Advantage support page. And so if you want to get back to there, you can click here. It's going to give you that breakdown of what's included and what's not included, okay? And then the help content here also gives you additional information about some of our calculations. So as you can see, personal service dollars, what it includes, what it doesn't include, and some of those posting codes that I mentioned for encumbrances. We have the encumbrance closed for 6150 current year support program encumbrance versus project encumbrance, so using the posting codes there. It's also going to break down how we're pulling in the budget 92. It's the BGE 92 documents, the BGE 92 ACR, and we're going to then break down even further about the event code types that go into the budget transactions. They have specific event code types, BGE 01, 03, 06, and 07. That indicates whether the budget is going to be increased or decreased, okay? And then you have some additional calculations. So when we say OE balance, what does that mean? And the calculation here breaks down that we say, let's take 6150 project current year encumbrance plus current year program encumbrance posting codes. We're going to add those together. Okay, that gives us our total encumbrances. And then we're going to minus out the expenditures. And what posting codes are those? We have the 9,000 cash, 9,001 accrued, and 9,002 interest. So we take the encumbrances and then we minus out the expenditures and we get our OE balance, right? We also do the same for total balance, right? So we want to look at OE versus PS. We want to look at grand totals. So all of your calculations, total encumbrances, all of this breaks down all of the posting codes that come from the accounting journals and how those calculations are built into this report. So feel free to become familiarized with some of the terminology, some of the acronyms, and some of the posting codes, okay? Now, I'll get into more later on the reference tables, but just know we do have a posting code summary table if you want to look up what those actually mean, okay? All right, let's go ahead and now take a look at a very detailed budget to actual report that you can use to export to Excel. And one of the most favorite reports that I like to use for budget to actual is under projects, and it's called the project summary report, okay? So we're going to break down a little bit more into detail. So in this report, we have what's called the BQ92 support summary, and it does a little bit of what the budget to actual does, but it brings in more lower level of detail. Okay, so let's go ahead and fill in these red boxes. So the red boxes are going to tell you have to fill in something. You can't just run, 12 years worth of data without filtering. So I'm going to go ahead and put a star in the appropriation category. And then I'm going to, okay, we're going to add, after we put the star in the appropriation category, we're going to go ahead and either fill in a district or program. So depending on what your responsibility is, if your program statewide, pick a program, okay, and then the red boxes go away. If you're a program within a district, maybe you only are responsible for District 11's 2010, then you can do that. Or if you are responsible for the entire budget in District 11 or District 10 or 4, then choose district and then make sure that you choose the right toggle button, program or district, depending on what you're doing. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that we have last year's budget, 21. I don't think every district has the 96501. I don't think they do. I'm going to go ahead and just include it just in case. Don't want to exclude expenditures by accident. And we're going to go ahead and let that run. And then, like I mentioned, this report is going to give you more information. Maybe you want to only pick a specific division within a district. Maybe you only want construction in a specific district. Then you can filter to a division, a specific unit. If you track things by section number, maybe you want a specific section number within maintenance. You only want the West region versus East region. You can search by section number. You can search for object codes, reporting codes, project IDs, phases. You can even search by old EA. So there's lots of additional filters to narrow down your search so that you don't get as many record rows. And the more filters you put on, the less record rows you're going to get. The number of record rows is down here in the bottom. And when you start to run files that are reaching that capacity of like 500,000 record rows, which I believe is the maximum we're going to allow you to download, that's typically going to be on a labor report kind of a scenario. But you can see how many record rows of data that it's going to return for you. Okay, so I'm taking a look today at just one district for last year, and as you can see below, and I'm gonna actually minimize this. I'll show you how to minimize. You can just use this little toggle button and collapse it. You're going to get more results in the bottom. But if you need to go back to your filters, then you just expand it again. Okay. These buttons down here do the same thing. Search leaves the panel open. Search and minimize searches and collapses the panel at the same time. Okay. So in the results grid, you're going to get all of your funding attributes, your type of money, the color of money, 3290 SB1, what PEC class is it, what project ID spent the money, what phase. It's going to give you the old EA unit, object class, and object code. And you're going to see the expenditures at that lower level. So you're going to see how much money was spent in operating expense using object code 132 versus somebody using labor timesheet for 6 hours for $389. Now, just like before, anything highlighted in this light blue color, it can be drilled down. So if I click on it, it's going to take me to the accounting journal again. So down here on the accounting journal, this is a CHL document. This tells me that it's an employee labor timesheet that comes from Staff Central. And then I can see the employee name of who those expenditures were for, the employee work week date. And then I can see all of the, well, I clicked on the fact that it was 3290 and 1850521. So I'm already going to have that funding profile because I drilled down on that. And when you drill down, you can see where you drill down from. So I was on a row that said, project ID was 005, PEC class was 8110, it was object class 0199, object code. So this gives you where you actually drilled from down to the accounting journal. So all of those lower level details are helpful. looking at the expenditures. And then your expenditures are going to be all the way to the end and the breakdown of the dollars and the hours, okay? So that's the 6.5 hours and the $389, and it breaks down the 2, 2, 1.5, and 1. And if I scroll back, I'm going to see that there was 1, 2, 3, 4 different timesheets that came through, okay? And the record dates. So let's go ahead and go back to summary. Okay. Now this report, because it has everything in it, it's going to have your PS, your encumbrances, and your expenditures. You're going to see your allocations as well. And when you get to your allocations, you're going to see your issue number. Let me scroll here, see if I can find an example. Let's see if we can find an allocation with a issue number. I can scroll a little faster here. Okay. Sometimes if you scroll a little bit too fast, it is going to buffer, so then you're going to just have to give it a few seconds. Okay, so you're going to see your allocation and your issue number, how much was increased or decreased by object class, and then of course by appropriation and fund. Your allocations are going to sit on one row, and your expenditures are going to sit on another row. We do not allocate to an object code level, so your expenditures will always have to be split out to the lower level, and your allocation bucket will stay at the object class level. But if I was to take this to Excel and create a pivot table, it would actually work really well to be able to allocate and see the allocations versus expenditures on a pivot, with the highest level being object class, but the capability of the pivot table within Excel to actually show down to the expenditure level of an object code, a specific division, a specific unit, a project, a program, lots of different ways in Excel to create the pivot table to allow a district budget office to download one report and then maybe summarize it and slice and dice it at different ways for the district's different various programs and divisions. So I'm just going to do a really quick high-level pivot table. This is not a pivot table training class by any means, but I want to show you kind of what it would look like if we just added the funds and appropriations, PEC class, and then I'm going to break down the object class, and I'm going to bring in the budget, the PS expended, the OE encumbrance, and the OE expended. I'll bring in all of these calculations so that you can see them. Okay. And how quickly a report can be run. This is a little bit because we've got all the object classes. I think I'm going to clean this up a little bit. Yeah, that is too much. Let's clean up this pivot table. Let's put in our object class. Instead of at the top, let's move it down here. There we go. Oh yes, much better. Okay, so now let's just run really quickly here. So object class, to the left by program, by appropriation, and by fund, right? Now, you want to look at your budget for labor only and see what you spent. You can just use your pivots and just look at your PS dollars only. And you're going to get a quick, unobligated, are you in the red or in the black, right? So if I want to just do a quick, let's do currency over and under. I always like to do it in red. Makes it very easy on the eye. And I can now see that for capital, for my district, the budget for 0042-21001 for labor was in the black, okay? But let's see if we can find in the red. Here's an in the red for labor, okay? So we overspent the budget by 1.3 million against 18,505.21 for labor only. So this is a quick way to create a budget report. And then what you can do is you can bring into your pivot table the additional information that you might want to slice and dice. Let's look at the field list here again. And I could make this now a division report, right? I can bring in division, and I can now start to see my division expenditures. Now you're not going to get your budget loaded at the division level, right? Not in Advantage anyway. That's going to feed into any reports. But you can start to, maybe we move it up here and we can pick a district, a division. Maybe you just want to look at construction, right? And then just look at the expenditures. You'll have to clean up each report, but because if you're going to take it down to a division level, you're not going to have your budget in there. Maybe you just take out the budget and you make this a truly just an expenditure report for a division, right? And maybe you move it this way. There's lots of different ways to slice and dice this one report. I can even bring it in by unit, right? And maybe if I'm going to do it by unit, I don't necessarily want the funds and the appropriations. Maybe I just want to keep it to a program look and an object class look. So this one report that we downloaded from DataLink has all the components of managing the budget, the PS dollars, the operating expense, etc., down to the lowest level of object code and object class and project ID. Okay, so that's a very quick high tutorial on pivot tables. Feel free to play around and make your own, create them, get creative, color code them, format them, etc. But you're going to have all of your information just from this one report. Okay, so that was a quick little side tutorial on pivot tables. If this is a report that you're going to run all the time, you might want to go ahead and save your inquiry. You can click here called Save Inquiry. Type in the name. This was 2021 budget year. Oops. And this was District 11. And I can say save, and then the report's going to be saved for me, and I no longer have to put in all of these appropriations each time and choose the district and whatever filters I put in here. And then I'm going to find my saved inquiries under User Tool. Last saved date. Let's find the one I just did. And it's right here. These are all of your saved inquiries. If you no longer need them, this is also where you will delete them. So if you no longer need this report, then you can delete. Okay? Yes or no? All right. So if I find the report that I just saved, I simply click on it. It's going to go ahead and load those filters that I saved. It's going to run the data, refresh the data, and it's going to be ready for me to export to Excel. The only thing you might want to do is make sure that you're still on the open. Make sure, unless you want to choose a closed month. Most budget reports are typically closed months, so you want to do as of closed month 2 or as of month 3. Make sure that they're closed after accounting has closed out that fiscal month. Okay. But since we're still looking at last year's budget, I'm using the open because we're still looking at encumbrance changes to contracts. Okay. All right, so that's a little bit of the program budget look by district and project and object code. So we're going to go ahead now and we're going to go back to some higher level reports that are also very helpful at the initial budget load. Okay. So let's go ahead and go back to general accounting. We're going to go back to budget to actual, and this time I'm going to show you the enacted budget. Okay. Now this is for your program look. So when we get the money from finance, we're going to load it in what's called the budget 90. So if I look at last year, I'm just going to pick one appropriation, or I'll just look at just 21XXX. I don't want to use necessarily all the different SB1 and all the other fund bonds and stuff. I'm just going to look at what was loaded for the 21 support money. I'm going to go ahead and search. Okay, so this is the initial load, how much was adopted and amended, and then the current budget at a very high level. Appropriation and fund, and that's it. And then it does bring in the current expenditures against that bucket of money. So if you work in the headquarters budgets office or headquarters program office, this is a really great way to just take a real snapshot before the budget gets dissected a little bit further down into the object classes and also down to the district level. This is the highest level, and just kind of spot checking how the program did by a specific appropriation at level 1. And then at level 2, you're going to add your program level in here. Okay, so now you've got the 2010, 2050, 5010, etc. And then you've got the 3 level. Okay, which is the full element here. Okay, so here, if you were a program, you can do a search, capital. This would be without SB1, of course. All right. So that's a little bit about the budget to actual at the enacted. There's not a lot that goes in with this page, but you can see the adopted, amended, and current. And then, of course, when you drill down here, it's going to give you the documents that were actually used to do the increase or the decrease, who did it, when was it done, and then any of those adjustments. Okay. All right. That's a little bit about the enacted budget. Not much to that one. Now we're going to stay at a very high level, again, looking at our expenditures, but let's look at a PS and OE report, okay? Now I showed you the project summary report, which is PS and OE combined, and some object code levels, but the PS and OE report here is not as much details. So if you don't need as much details as the project summary, then you can try this report, PS and OE expenditures. Okay. All right, so let's go last year, July. We'll go to end of last year. This is really a yearly look. This report was originally built for accounting use, so it's really focused within, a specific year's range. You don't have all of those 20, open payments against current contracts. It's really looking at a 1-year look at a time. So if I'm looking at last year, I would go to current open month, which we're still in adjustment period. Accounting is still processing adjustments, and we haven't closed accounting period 17 just yet. Okay, I'm going to choose that, and I continue to use my element 2010. It's your highest level. Now, for those of you that don't know the difference, you have element, and then you also have PEC class. And the PEC class is just a roll up to the element. So let's say you have traffic ops. Element is 2070, 2070, but PEC class will have 2710, 20, 30, 40, 50, right? Permits, outdoor advertising, traffic ops, etc. So you'll have 2071, 2072, etc. PEC class, but it rolls up to the element of 2070. Kind of think of it like a parent and a child, right? So some reports let you pick by element, and when you see element on any report in DataLink, you always want to try to use that one because it's the highest level, and it's going to grab all of those lower level children and bring them with you. If you don't use the element and you choose PEC class, and I'll show you guys more of that as we continue on, then you have to know which programs to type in, or I'll show you how to use the wildcard. Okay, so let's look at last year. Okay, I'm just going to pick, again, I'm just going to use a couple appropriations for the demo. All right, so there's only a couple views in here. We have a task level view, activity, subactivity, subactivity and object code, and then even down to a reporting code level. So it is a little higher level than, or a lower level, I should say, than budget to actual, but it's not as low as the project summary report. So it's kind of like a mid-level reporting without project ID in there. Okay? But you can see below, you're going to have the fiscal year, which is transaction year. When did the payment actually process? What budget fiscal year? Transactionally. Against what budget appropriation was it? And so you can have expenditures post in 2022, current year, against old appropriations that have encumbrances. So this report is very specifically looking at a transactional basis expenditure information. So show me what transactionally paid in the fiscal year 2021 against a 21 budget line, okay? If I was to look at current year 2022, I would see 2022 here, but still paying against 21 data, okay? So this report does break down your hours, your PS dollars, your OE cash, but there's no encumbrances here. This is truly expenditures only, and it does break down to a lower level for you if you're tracking the program element component and program element component task and task. So these mean something to the program capital outlay. They track at a lower level, so they may want to see the task level information. You can see capital program management versus project development major, and etc. Construction engineering. So if you hover over anything, it'll give you the name, or if you click on any label, there's a drop-down menu and there's columns, and you can add additional things that are hidden and unhidden. So if I want task description and subtask and fund and subfund and object class and units, I can turn on those descriptions into my report. And it adds the labels right next to it so that you don't have to look them up later, okay? So this report, again, not as low as the project ID, still has some funding with some accounting object codes and object classes with the expenditures broke down. And then again, like before, drill down from here, takes you to the accounting journal as to who spent it, what employee, what vendor spent this money, and it'll give you the vendor information as well. Okay, so we're talking a little bit about the expenditures, but as I mentioned, there's no encumbrances here. Encumbrances, if you want to look at very detailed encumbrances, I would recommend using our encumbrance by vendor page. So let's go ahead and take a look at that next. Under general accounting, you want to take a look at encumbrances and slide over to our encumbrances by vendor. In here, there are many, many different views about looking at expenditures. For districts and programs, you don't want to look at anything by fiscal year. This is a very transactional based report for accounting. What did we pay transactionally to a vendor versus reports that a budget manager in a district or a budget manager at a program level would want to see how much money and how much did we encumber to a vendor against a particular fund type appropriation budget year. Okay, so very different ways of looking at encumbrances. So avoid these three if you are a budget or a program budget manager. And if you work for accounting and you want to look at fiscal year, then you would use these three. Now, the report that I think most districts like to see is down to the project and the phase level. But if you don't want as much details, there are some mid-level. So I'll start higher and then I'll go a little lower. I'll also show you there is the difference between project encumbrance, program encumbrance, and then we also have pre-encumbrance. So we'll take a look at different views for encumbrances. I'm going to stay at a very high level. I do plan on doing a true encumbrance contracting video that will be very detailed, go into contract management, payment management, tracking invoices, A&E expenditures against task orders, encumbrance management to a contractor vendor. So I'm going to get very detailed into that video. So today I'm just going to kind of show you some of the reports that a budget manager can use to track expenditures for their program or their district. Okay, so if I was the budget manager for a district and I'm going to look at what did I spend encumbered to date for just this year's budget, first thing I'm going to do, obviously, I'm going to take out my appropriation category roll-up. I'm going to take it down to appropriation, 21 star, and my SB1, and any other support money that I might have, ARA funds, etc. Choose a district, and I'm going to pick, let's see, I'll just pick one program just so you can kind of see one program at a time. Actually, we want to be in the PEC class. And I mentioned PEC class earlier. Let me show you what I was referring to. So if you can see, we were talking about how the traffic ops has the lower levels, 2070, 2070, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And as you can see, the 0 on the end for traffic ops, 1 on the end for safety, 2, management, collection, airspace, permits, and transportation permits. Those elements would either have to be typed in with the PEC class, you'd have to type them in individually, like this, or you can do this, 207 star, so you get all of them. Or when you see a page that has element, I was saying that the parent allows the roll-ups below to come all the way up to a program, okay? So anytime you're dealing with traffic ops, planning, maintenance, no, not maintenance, maintenance doesn't have, no, maintenance, I'm sorry, they do. Maintenance has like 75 different PEC classes. Anytime you can find a report that uses element, that's the easiest way to do it. 2070, 2080, etc. And it'll just bring all those additional PEC class children, what I call children, with them into the report, and you don't have to think about it. Okay, so for encumbrance management, it's going to be a little bit different. Let's go ahead and, well, let's do the whole district. Let's just pull everything. And for encumbrance management, you want to see the all button when you're dealing with contracts because you don't want to automatically exclude any object codes. But if you are using this to manage your budget and you don't want to see capital, or subvention or some of those other object codes that go against your support budget, then you can switch it to district. So kind of depends on what you're trying to do with this report. If you're a contract manager or you're managing a bunch of different task orders, then you don't want to exclude certain things. Then use the all button. And I know it's a little tricky. Refer back to that include and exclude rules table and it will explain. So contract management, versus budgeting contract management, slightly different. So I'm going to look at only things that affect my budget for encumbrances right this minute for last year's money, okay? And I see very high level, I get the vendor, I get the vendor name, I get the contract ID, and then it tells me how much was encumbered, how much has been paid, and how much is still open and available. Very high level, okay? You can also use this. Let's say I have a multi-year contract. You can use document ID. You can type in, is it a CT, a PO, task order, whatever doc code it is, and then the doc ID below. And if you want to look at a full contract from beginning to end, then you would take out your appropriations and search and see if this is a multi-year contract. Let me do all, yeah, okay? So total contract, I don't care about the budget. I don't know how much, I don't necessarily need to know at this very minute how it's broken down by budget year. I just need to know what the total contract is. So the total contract for District 11 is 221,000. We've paid 190. There's still open balance of 31,000. Okay. Now, if this contract happens to be a statewide contract, maybe multiple districts are using this contract, then you might not want to have the district in here as well. You might want to limit and search again just to make sure that your contract doesn't have additional districts using it, okay? So use your filters, make sure you answer your questions, think about the questions that you're asking to try to solve, and then use your filters appropriately, okay? So this is one way to look at one contract as a whole. And then what you could see here, over here to the left, you're gonna see that you had money in 13, 14, 15, 16, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, okay? So pretty simple. But let's look at this from a budgeting encumbrance management tool. All right, so let's say I want to look at 2010, actually element, just get used to doing that. Just get used to doing element as much as you can. And I want to pick on a district. This time we'll pick on District 4 and district. And I only want this year's budget, or last year's budget, 21 star. All right. So while that's loading, you're going to see in the results grid every encumbrance, whether it's a purchase order, a contract, or a CalCard. CalCard does encumber and expend in the same month. So it is treated as an encumbrance, but most of it will clear out in that same accounting period when they do the CalCard reconciliation. So you shouldn't see too much open balance unless you're in current month expenditure information, but most of 2021 should be already cleared out. Okay, so again, high level, you've got some contracts with AT&T, Verizon, you can see University of California, Americas, so lots of different vendors, right? But it doesn't really tell you much about the project ID, the unit, the division, any of that. So if you need to go down a lower level to track your expenditures, you can change your view to this one, project base summary. Okay, now I'm still going to keep this year's budget. I'm going to go ahead and put a star in the appropriation category. And I'm going to now search because my red boxes went away. And I'm going to go ahead and search and minimize. Collapse that panel. And let's let that data load. Okay, so we got some information, but if you notice, we have a lot of CalCard. And because CalCard, like I said, it usually has no open balance, if you want to make this less record rows, okay, and just focus on true encumbrances, you can use the doc code filter type in CT, PO, TO, and MA. Okay, let's do that. Research, and that will reduce the record count and get rid of the CalCard. Okay. If you ever find a CalCard that has still an open balance for last year, most likely it was a draft that maybe never got executed. You might need to have that user discard that data so that it clears out the CalCard. Okay. All right, so let's let that finish loading. All right. So this is a really detailed encumbrance report, and this would be one that I would recommend taking to Excel because you have your whole district for one budget year, and it's going to tell you the unit, the division, the project ID, the object class, the object code, reporting code, vendor information, the doc ID. It's also going to tell you when was the last time a payment was made. So maybe you have a 3-year contract, you still have open encumbrances, but you haven't paid it in a year. That's good information to share with your budget managers within your district. Maybe each division has so much money sitting in encumbrances that you need to help manage over a 3-year period. And you want to be able to say, hey, you encumbered $50,000, you've only spent $5,000, and the last time you paid it was a year ago. Are we going to still keep that encumbrance open, or should we liquidate? So those are conversations that you can have within your district, district divisions, and ensure that we're managing our encumbrances to the best of our ability, making sure payments go through, and making sure that we're not tying up money and not liquidating to use that money somewhere else in the department. So this is a very detailed report. It's going to let you see the vendor and the PO information, and then you're going to see how much was encumbered, paid, and open balance, okay? And if you see any open balances and you think, hey, I'm completely done with this contract, then go ahead and liquidate the rest, okay? So really great report here, letting you see at a high level. Now you can do this as a 3-year look as well. Okay, so a quick clarification, I was referring to future year encumbrances on the contract management views, and I noticed that there's a couple contracts throughout the districts that are set up with program money encumbrances, and so if it's program, we're going to see future year with the appropriation, so we know what's coming down the pipeline. It just won't roll over until encumbrance management rolls it over in July 1st of whatever fiscal year it's going to be. So we have 2 views that I wanted to bring your attention to. When you're looking at project and phase, that would be current year encumbrances, 6150, and that should have an appropriation and a dollar value. If you have a program encumbrance where you're setting up a contract for a future year using program money, you don't necessarily know what project is going to be used just yet, like this one, then that's okay. You're going to be able to see the program money tied to future year, and then it's going to show up in the future year column. So just wanted to bring that to your attention and make a correction to what I said previously. And again, I will be doing a detailed contract manager report as well. I just wanted to kind of show you as a budget manager how you can use this report, okay? I'm going to collapse that. So what you're going to see here is the appropriation for last year is going to have an appropriation category 2021, and you'll see the 2021 budget fiscal year. So those all show up fairly simple, right? 2021, 2022, etc. And you're going to see all of the information, the project ID like I mentioned before, and then the encumbered amount, closed amount. But for 2023, what it's going to look like, let's see if we can scroll down here, find some 2023s. There's a couple. Let's see find the blank 2023. What you should see is your 2023 should not have any budgeting information. Some of these might have been set up wrong. If you're seeing an appropriation like this in a 2023, this contract most likely is set up wrong, and we need to take a look at that, because you should never see an appropriation for a future year until July 1st of July 1st of that fiscal year. What you should be seeing, if we can scroll down here to 23 stuff, might be at the very bottom. There's quite a few contracts. Let's see. Yeah. Let's finish letting that load, because I want to show you that your 2023 money should have no appropriation, but your budget fiscal year will say 2023 and your appropriation will be blank. That's kind of what I was trying to show. Okay, so here's some 2023. What you'll see here is that you typed in on the RQS 2023. No budget year exists yet. No appropriation exists yet until we get to that July 1st, and then the contract rollover process will bring that money forward into a current year. But what it does is it sets it aside and it shows you here as future year. Okay, so when you're looking at a contract, let's pick one, and you're looking at let's pick one here, one whole one. Let's just use one contract ID just so you can kind of see. I'm going to look at the whole contract here. Okay, so I can let you visually see what that would look like if you're the contract manager. And make sure if you see any contracts in your district where you have a future year appropriation, you might need to look at the event code type for that and see how that was set up. And you can run a 2023. I can show you really quick when we're done here. So you can see here this contract is 5.9 million. So much is sitting in current year. Let's go back. Or last year, I should say, 2021. So much sitting in 2022. And then your 23 budget year is future. So let's look at this again over here. When it moved from 2022 to current, we liquidated it from 2022 and we moved it into 2023. And you'll see that there is still a total of 5.9, and then 7 million is sitting out in future year. Okay, so if you want to just double check any that potentially might have been set up wrong with event code types on the RQS, you can run 2023. You can look at everything though, CT and PO both. Do CTPO and task order. See what 2023 shows up. And then you might just have to have your contract managers take a look and make sure that these are set up correctly. 2023. So that one is 2023. Good. So that one, as we went across, you'll see there's no money there. That's good. So you just want to make sure that anything that has a 2023 that you don't actually have a row for it. So there's no money there. That's good. So things might have been encumbered and liquidated and brought forward. If I was to drill down, I might see that there was some liquidation. Okay, so that's just a little bit about looking at current year, future year, very high level, but let your contract managers in your districts really manage these contracts. Make sure that the event code types, when they set up the RQSs, were set up correctly so that they roll over every year correctly, that we get the amount of money encumbered in both current year and future year accurate on each contract. So this is a great report to be able to do that. Okay, so that's a little bit about encumbrances. Let's go ahead and look at our other report, which is just focusing on OE and encumbrances. Again, slightly different way of looking at encumbrances, very high level, a little bit higher level than the contract view, but not as detailed as the project summary view. So OE and encumbrance here just lets you look at a division level, an object class level, and an element level, an object code, so lots of different ways. Let's just take a look at a division look. So if you're in the district and you want to take a look at how each division is doing for current year, let's just take a look at current July. And I'll pick on a different district this time. Let's pick on District 7. And I want to look at current year 22 this time. Maybe I just want to get a spot check on how is my district doing so far, in the first 2 months of the year. I'm going to pick my district and I'm going to hit search, and I'm going to let that load. Okay, it's going to break this down by division and object class. This report does have your pre-encumbrances in there, so if you've got contracts that are being executed through DPAC, those dollars will show up as well. And just like the other reports that I was showing you on the encumbrance by vendor, if you want more detailed information about pre-encumbrance, then you can go back to the encumbrance by vendor and choose the pre-encumbrance view. And that might give you a little bit more details than having to drill down on each division one at a time to look at pre-encumbrances. So DataLink is meant to be able to use various reports to answer different questions. You're not going to get a report that has every single accounting journal, which is millions and millions of record rows, to a flat file that you can take out to Excel. A, we're going to max out at 500,000 rows. B, we're not going to go back and give you 12 years worth of data. That's just too much information. So all of our canned reports answer different questions, just slightly different. And so you'll get familiar with which report does what to give you a quick answer without having to drill down into all of the details. So familiarize yourself with the different reports, and even within a report, some of the various views, okay? So this is a high-level look for District 7. It's telling me that, I've got some pre-encumbrance, $95, sitting in Object Class 3. I've got some general expense to admin. And if you're interested in this $95, just like before, you can drill down on it. Hey, well, what is that? What is that? Oh, it's an RQS. What's happening? What is this? Okay, looks like an expenditure. And you can go look up that document, this $95 document, most likely staff benefits, probably going to be a retirement award or something. So you can get the RQS document, go into Advantage and look this up and get more details at that, at a lower level, okay? So this is just a quick high-level report for division and object class, okay? And it gives you program plus project encumbrance. So it's going to give you both your program money that hasn't been actually assigned a project ID yet. So maybe some of those A&E contracts. And it's also going to bring in your project encumbrance where it has a project ID associated with it, but you still get both of your dollars, okay? Program plus project. And then any actual expenditures. So for current year, pre-encumbered is sitting at 10 million coming down the pipeline, and then looking at the 61.1 million. And remember, I'm looking at districts, so there could be some things in here that were excluded. If you want to look at it from an all perspective, you can. It's just going to, give you a different answer to things that are not supposed to be included in your budget and your expenditures. So again, keep it on the district and let the magic behind the scenes do the work for you. Okay. So again, looking at different elements of different views, same view, but I added the program in here so I can see now it's capital district 3, object class 3 versus maybe I want to see the object code level. So now I'm adding the object code level. So at each report view, I'm adding more details. Okay. All right. And then there is one in here that lets you look at it by unit code as well. So division, unit, object class, object code. And this report, again, more like a mid-level report, not as detailed as project summary, but more detailed than budget to actual, right? So, get familiar which reports work best for you, okay? All right, let's say that you had a question. You keep seeing quite a bit of travel. Let's just say that we were in a normal travel season. You're seeing lots of expenditures coming through for travel, and you want to know a little bit more about travel. That's a different question. We have a whole report under our accounting, and then if you slide down to travel summary as a budget manager, maybe you want to look at who's traveling and where and who and where are they traveling to. We have lots of different reports in here. You can look at a fiscal year summary, an object code summary, a vendor, employee. You can look at just air travel, just car, and just travel details. Or you can look at everything. I want to see all the details by an employee. I want to see how they traveled, how much they spent, both on airfare and in-state per diem in their TECs. So lots of different ways. I'm just going to pick one that is my favorite. My favorite two would be probably this one and the details. So let me show you really quick what that would look like. When do you want to start? We'll just use July 1st. There's probably not much travel going on right now, but let's go with what we can find, okay? So I'm just going to do a quick date range here. You can pick an employee if you know you're searching for a specific person. You can search a specific district, division, unit, etc. I'm just going to take a look at what's happening statewide. And this is a high-level report by employee. And what it's going to do is it's going to break down how much was spent on air, car, fees, and other. And the other is your TECs, okay? So your actual travel expense claims that have come in. And it's going to show you what district and what unit they charged you, okay? So this is great, high level. But maybe you want more details. I'm going to go ahead and switch to a detailed view. And here's where, as a budget manager, resource manager, maybe you need to track expenditures, and you need to maybe project a specific employee that you know is traveling all the time. And so what you want to do is kind of start to look and see what their averages are, maybe in a month's time, and then that would help you project. If they're traveling, always every month to the same location, then, that's a pretty average straight line projection. If you have an employee that's traveling statewide, you're going to have different cost benefit, cost analysis that go with each travel time that they go. Maybe 1 week it's, for 2 days, and another time it's for the entire week. So you'll kind of get familiar with some of the details by looking at it by a specific employee, and that's going to help you with any projections or questions for your budgeting when you're getting towards like mid-year and looking at your spending trends for any travel that you may know of, okay? I'm going to let that finish loading here. Okay, so be careful with how much data range you're trying to pull. Sometimes it'll time out on you. I actually had a timeout that I had to refresh this page and pull just one district. So it was easier to pull one district, and most of you guys will be pulling one district at a time. But travel details are very detailed. So let's see what's down here. You can see the employee name, the vendor invoice number that billed us from Concur. If it's from a TEC, you'll see the TEC and the payment, the date, object code, unit, project ID, the phase, the billing information, usually comes in from Concur once a month. And then you're going to see the object class information, right? And the dollars, okay? So you're going to get a little bit more details on this report down to the object code and the unit level with the travel details by employee. Now, if you are interested in more details about, well, where did they go, etc., you can switch to the travel details by employee. So maybe you want to search on one particular person. I'll just use myself as the example today. I haven't traveled for a little bit, but let's go ahead and pull up a person by name. And we'll do that. Okay. Okay, so as you can see, we can get kind of a history of an employee, and what you're going to see is you're going to see the invoice information. Like I mentioned, if the TEC is in there, you're going to know that was just the payment from accounting, and then the date, the fiscal year. For all TECs, we're going to go back in history and time, but for the details of, say, let's pull just myself. Do you see how we have different AGRs? Make sure that you're searching specifically for one employee. Okay. So the TECs can go back in time. Unfortunately, for Concur data, which is your detailed Southwest, your car rentals, any of that, we're only going to go back from Concur from November of 2018 to forward. Okay. So you're not going to get all the history of an employee going back as far back in Concur. So prior to 2018, we don't have that data. So that's what that note states there. But you're definitely going to have all of your accounting TEC. Okay. So use your reports to your advantage. You can see that this was air versus it'll tell you if it's a fee or a TEC. Okay. And then all of the additional information. So feel free as a resource manager to use any of these reports for travel to help with budgeting and expenditure projections. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about another topic. As a resource manager, program manager, maybe you need to track your warehouse purchasing. We do have a warehouse 118 report. It's under general accounting, materials 118. And this is just going to show for your district. We'll just look at current year on District 6 this time. And we'll take a look at how much money was credited back to headquarters and charged to your district. And for warehouse, depending on if you're purchasing it yourself or if you got it from headquarters warehouse, there's a process that reverses the charges out of the overhead, project ID out of the warehouse versus, and then charges directly to project ID. And so you can see that you've got some money debiting and crediting at the district level, debits, credits, debits, credits. It's going to give you your PEC class that it is either debiting or crediting. It's going to see, you're going to see the project ID 381. That's where the credit is going to go. And then it's charging the project ID that was put on the LREDP when you turn in your paperwork to get items out of the warehouse. So it's a very straightforward report, but there's some information that you can use to ask headquarters IMMS warehouse people to run some detailed reports. about what was purchased out of the warehouse if you need to track that information. So if you needed to see, well, what was purchased for $1,500, maybe you run the report, you send it up to headquarters, um, and you give them this document ID and this transaction ID, and then they're going to be able to run a very detailed warehouse purchasing report that comes back that tells you it was so many flashlights and vests and hard hats, etc. But you're also, as a resource manager, you're looking for either charges or credits to your program so that you can manage your budget. So you can see how much money was credited, 1 point something million was taken from your district and given up to headquarters versus how much money is being spent on project IDs directly. And then you can also use this report to run a project ID specific. Maybe you want to see how much has been charged to a specific project ID. Feel free to do that. So for current year 2022, show me expenditures that hit project ID 41, and you'll see 60,000 debited with credit back. So back and forth. This is very detailed. For more information about warehouse and charging, you can contact the headquarters warehouse staff, and they'll be able to assist you a little bit better. But again, using your filters to tie a specific appropriation. Maybe you want to look at just SB1 money charging versus regular support money. Maybe you want to look at a specific division, construction, maintenance, engineering, traffic ops, and you can use your filters to weed some of the record row counts down a little further. So take out your project, pick a division, rerun the report. Now you're going to get all of the charges for construction and all the various project IDs that charged the warehouse purchasing of $22,000, along with all of the funding and the appropriation information. Okay, so that's a little bit about the warehouse tracking of expenditures that you might need to do as a resource manager. One of the other reports that you might need to run is your utility management. You might need to track expenditures as a resource manager for cell phones and landlines, water, electrical. So you can use, and I'm going to do a very detailed utility management video as well in the future, but for now we're just going to focus on what we have, which is our utility summary page. And you can kind of get a payment summary by year. So maybe you want to see how much your district has spent last year. We'll go ahead and go back to last year. You can choose fiscal year or calendar year. Do you want to see it from July to June or from January to December? You can decide how you want to do it. We'll pick on District 5 this time. I'm going to go ahead and run everything just so you can see total cost for the year for all types of utilities. So you can see electrical, fixed phones, garbage, mobile, oil and gas, and water and sewer. And then it's going to give you by month. You can drill down on the total. So if you want to see every account for electrical or cell phones, let's look on cell phones. You can use the total and drill down once versus what was paid by month. And these are the months that we actually pay. So transaction month, we paid it in July. That invoice could be for June, could be for May, it could have even been from last year. And we'll take a look at that because there's a lot of rejected documents in our utility files. And until those utility rejected files are cleared, they will not post until those are fixed. So let's take a look at cell phones. I know that's typically one of the bigger issues. Let's drill down on the total, 388. And when you get to the drill down, you're going to see the account information For cell phones, it makes it really easy that the account number is the cell phone number. For other accounts, like a water meter or an electrical meter, it's really just the account number that's tied from that vendor, okay? But I want to show you on the drill down the invoicing service to and from date versus when it was paid. And this does affect your budget. When you have rejected documents that sit in a rejected file for a long time and they are finally cleared, that will impact the budget in which the year it finally posts. So you want to be checking your rejected documents as best as you can, making sure that those are all cleared so that you don't get a large amount of dollars posted to your budget in a year that should have been paid in previous years, okay? Because this is support, it's not going to pay against, unless it's phase 4, it's not going to post against older years' money because it's going to hit in the current year. So managing our utilities that are rejected is a huge responsibility as a resource manager, and I will show you the rejected documents just quickly. And again, I'm going to be doing a detailed video on this as well. But just from a quick high level, you'll see that the account number is here, the project ID that's getting charged for this particular account. It's going to tell you the information by phase, unit, division, any reporting codes. Here's all the UPRC documents that process the payments. We can see that it's Verizon Wireless, mobile, commodity code. And here's the invoice number, invoice date, original date. So invoice date shows 11/10, but we paid it on 12/3. So that's not too bad. You may find, like I mentioned, that your invoice date was from a year prior or 6 months prior, and you'll see that difference of invoice date versus original record date. So that's really the difference here. I don't see any that jump out at me that are really old that affected the budget, but you would be able to take this to Excel and then maybe filter on original date versus invoice date, and you would see that payment history there. Okay, you're going to see the amount of the bill for each account. So $9 versus a bill that's, say $50. Okay, and then there's no usage on the Verizon, but you may see usage and quantity on a water meter or an electrical meter. Okay, feel free to take these out to Excel and sort them and filter them by division, by unit, and look at the total cost, maybe for projections on a specific division if needed, so you can get average monthly costs. Okay. If you're a resource manager for a specific division, you can use the filters here and look at a specific division, a specific unit within a district, and then just get the cost for your division. Okay, so admin within District 5 spent total $246,000 against electrical, fixed phones, mobile, water, gas, etc. Okay, so that's a high-level look. You can search by account number. Once you get familiar with your account numbers, you can search by account number, commodity code only, certain project IDs, a unit, or a specific object code. We do have the rejected file that I mentioned. You can run a rejected file for District 5. What you won't know is if you haven't turned in paperwork to the ATR or to any other accounting person to set up these accounts. If we don't know what district it belongs to, it's going to just sit in our rejected file without a district. And that has a little bit more work to be done to identify who owns this particular account and then work with the districts to get that paperwork filled out with the proper coding, object code, unit, project ID, so that we can set up the account in accounting so that the bills post to your district appropriately. Okay. So right now we only know about a few, 3 documents that are rejected in District 5 for a total of $109. You can drill down here and you will be able to see the reason why it was rejected. Was it a project ID that's no longer active? Was it a phase that's no longer active? Or any other reason? So work with your utility coordinator in your district in accounting to work on clearing these rejected documents as soon as possible so that they can post in the current year budget expenditures, okay? So you'll be able to see there's other reasons why this particular documents have errored out. So again, work with headquarters, your accounting rep for utilities, and have them help you figure out why. Sometimes headquarters has to reject and fix these, and sometimes the districts have to fix them. But together, as a group, a team effort, we can get all of the rejected documents cleared out. Okay. So District 5 is not looking too bad. If I was to search statewide against all rejected documents, we have a total of $291,000 against all of these various vendors that has not hit a district budget. And when these do get posted, these expenditures, even if they're old, are going to hit current year budget. So it's really important as a budget manager, resource manager, if you see a vendor that you know is yours, San Diego, obviously that's you, San Diego District 11, you'll be able to identify and work with the ATRs and your accounting reps to get these cleared. If they're cell phones, AT&T, Verizon, work with headquarters, work with the ATRs in the district against the headquarters ATRs, see if we can try to get these documents cleared and paperwork into the accounting file so we can clear up these rejected documents, okay? All right, that's a little bit about utilities and resource management. Before I move on to labor, and that will be our last topic, will be labor and then reference tables. If you're managing capital or maintenance for timesheets, overhead is only for capital, and we'll cover that. And then we'll cover maintenance specific. I'm just going to touch on it, and I will do a separate video just for maintenance dashboards, okay? But it does have its own reporting, and it has its own unique way of coding. So a different video will be set up specifically for this. But let's talk real quick about overhead under labor. And there's a 17% rule for capital outlay that says districts must stay within their allocation of overhead spending against project spending and stay within 17%. So this report here allows you to look at current year. So let's take a look at current year only. Let's take a look at what appropriations we know. 22, 505, 22. And we think we know we've got some 96,501, 22. And I'm going to pick 2010. It does, capital outlay does include overtime, so I do have the overtime included. If you want to look with or without, you can take the checkbox off. And then you want to pick a district. Let's pick on District 8 this time. Okay. What this is going to do is it's going to bring in all the labor time sheets, and it's going to place them in buckets. We have what's called project direct charging and project non-direct charging. And then there's certain buckets of allocations that come from capital outlay specifically for stormwater, consultant services, and then basically whatever's left is considered overhead. So you can see here we've got district, division, and of course it's only PEC 2010, COS support. You've got total hours of labor. So all charges, 457,000, 6,000 hours, and of the total, 4.75 hit a project ID that was considered minors, 261 hit majors. So total direct is, the total is 266, okay? for admin. Okay, total direct charging. Then you also have a little bit of chargeback charging, and then whatever's left, we take the calculation of total direct hours minus consultants minus stormwater minus chargeback, and what's left is considered overhead. Okay, now admin's always going to be the highest because we're all overhead. Admin's always going to be overhead. Some of your other programs within your district, let's say construction, design, let's pick on construction here. Construction's looking great. They're at 14% in month July through August, so 2 months worth of data. They're doing well. They're managing their overhead and staying within their 17%. Now, the next division here, just quickly, if I was looking at this row, environmental, slightly above 17%. So we might want to start monitoring them and making sure that their timesheets are charging correctly, not just charging everything to overhead. And if you want to see who's charging, the little people icon here, you click on it, and it'll tell you who's charging overhead direct, okay? And maybe you have conversations as a resource manager, as a budget manager, you're asking, hey, doesn't so-and-so typically charge project direct? Why are we having 206 hours charged to overhead? Again, those are conversations that have to happen in the district, okay? I don't know who's allowed to charge overhead, who's not. Those are conversations that you should have within your program 2010, within your district and your divisions, okay? So let's go back to the summary. Let's take a look at one that's really high, 37% right of way. So those are really big conversations that you need to have with right of way that says, hey, we're way above 17%. Why are we not charging more project direct? What's happening with so much overhead hours being charged, okay? So as a district, if you look down here, you're just slightly above 17% as a whole, but within each division, you're going to have higher and lower percentages, okay? All right, that's a little bit about labor overhead, and it really is specific to just capital. You can still use this report, and you want to look at the whole division without just capital in the 17%. It just doesn't make sense. You know, it might not make sense depending on what you would like to do with the data, but feel free to pick a district and division and look at one at a time, or maybe you want to look at it by unit. You can do that as well. Maybe you want to focus on the right-of-way one, you know, and focus more on the units that are doing it. Then I can filter here. And I'm going to change it maybe to, let's see, let's do a object. I'm going to change this to include the unit now, just for right-of-way. And then I'm going to look at the sub-objects, like what kind of work are they working on that would, you know, be charging so much of that overhead specifically, okay? Okie dokie, let's look at the next one, which is charge district summary. So if you work in a district that is central region or northern region, you might want to look at source district versus charge district, and you can do district 3, and then it'll show you the districts that are charging district 3 project IDs, right? So I'll let that load. Okay. So you've got district 3 charging, but they're charging a district 1 project ID or a district 7. So lots of you know, different ways of looking at this data. Okay, that's a little bit about overhead. Let's move on to employee labor, very detailed labor charging. This is another great report for resource managers, tracking expenditures and projections for your district. So I like this particular report view, which has the capability of going all the way down to the reporting code level. This basically is almost the entire timesheet from Staff Central. I'm going to just use current year only. I'm going to go July to July. Close month, I'm going to run 1 month's worth of time for a district. We will pick on District 3 this time. Okay. And if you're Central Region, Northern Region, and you want to do show me all units charging in District 3, but a different project ID like District 1, you can do this. You want to do O1 star, right? Or maybe O2 star. Okay, you can do this. So these are units that roll up to District 3, but they're charging District 1 projects, District 2, or District 3 projects. Okay, you can do it that way. So I'm just going to take that out, though. I'm just going to let all of District 3 run for 1 month. And what the results are going to give us is the fiscal month and period that the transaction from the timesheet occurred, the employee information, their name, their ID. It's going to display the employee work week date, their position ID, their job code, serial number, their bargaining unit. If you're using this to track overtime usage and bargaining unit and making sure that we're staying within the rules for the MOU, 400 hours or whatever the MOU says for overtime by bargaining unit, this is a great report to do that. You're going to see all the additional charging, what unit, division, program, element, phase, object code, everything. All of the details from the timesheet show up. And then you're going to see if it's reg hours, overtime hours, if it's temp help. Temp help employees may be sitting in the blanket. If they're sitting in the blankets because of a position management issue, those expenditures are going to be here. Technically, reg temp combined really goes against your budget for a 199 object class, unless those employees are specifically hired as a retired annuitant, and they're truly what we call temp help. You may or may not get a bucket allocation from the programs for that. So when you're taking this data out to Excel, you may have to do some calculations to add reg plus temp equals total dollars against whatever allocation you're getting from your programs. Okay, so all of the details here break down. You do have the total hours, of course, if you want to see it. If you need to drill down to find out the CHL document that processed that, maybe somebody mischarged a project ID, and you need them to back out their timesheets. You can see that it's the work week of 7/25, but you can drill down on the 2 hours and find the CHL. You'll be able to say, hey, Wesley, looks like, the record date posted on 8/4, but it was for the work week of 7/25. I think you accidentally charged, the project ID, 01141, phase 3. I need you to go back to your timesheet, reverse it out. And then what you should be able to do is after that's processed, you'll see the negative against the journal all the way here. You'll see a new row come in, negative 209.87, 2 hours, and then a net 0, and then the new project ID would show up on a new row for them to charge to. There are some occurrences where this does not net 0 correctly. And what happens is based on the timing of the timesheet, this dollar amount has a applied calculation of our payroll assessment rate. And there's also MSAs on an employee that process at different times of the year. So when somebody does their timesheet, there's a calculation, it applies it. If there's a correction, sometimes this will not net 0 exactly to the same dollar amount. So just be aware of that information, okay? Back to summary. Use your filters to answer different questions. Maybe you do want to take the whole 46,000 record rows out to Excel, great, that's fine. But if you can narrow down additional information, maybe you just want to look at one division, you just want admin, use your filters. And then within admin, maybe you only want one unit, or maybe you just want one program, traffic ops versus capital versus maintenance. Use your filters to get as low down of detail as possible to answer your questions so that you don't have as many record rows to take out to Excel. So labor is pretty detailed. We have quite a few views. If you can see, we've got an organizational view, not as many details. Okay, it's going to stay high level. What is the employee name, position ID, unit, district, division? That's it. Okay, organizationally, what does it look like? Then we start to add, well, what program and fund type, project ID, even all the way down to sub-object and activity. And then, like I said, this one has the most, which is down to the reporting code level. We also have employee position information, and then we have a employee history file as well. So let me show you what that would look like. Let's just use myself here. Actually, I'm going to use my S number because sometimes employees change their names, and you might want to look at inception to date and go back as far as possible with an employee. Then you would want to do this. Okay. So this is a great one. Make sure you change inception to date. You can look at an employee range, fiscal year, a period range, maybe quarterly, or employee work week date. But for history, going back to inception to date, you'll be able to see employee. Okay, so you can see I had a name change, right? So it's going to split out the name change into the two rows. If you don't want the two rows split out, and maybe take it back up a level to the position level, and it will then split it out by, so I have employee name splitting out versus now I'm going to split it out by position. So it depends on kind of what you're looking for as far as information about a specific employee and their history. Okay, so I'm going to let that load. Okay, so you can see the history, all the different job position classifications over time. Okay, so each view is very specific to what it's trying to do. This is mostly all the way up to here is all the charging, and this is really position focused. Okay, all right, that's a little bit about labor. Let's move on to maintenance. Maintenance has some very specific reports that are available. So if you're managing the 2080 budget in your district or your program 2080, you guys are going to be using these dashboards and these detailed reports. Okay, I'm going to focus first on the dashboard. Again, I'm going to stay high level. I'll create a new video later for specifically detailed, but I just wanted to show you that there are some views available if you're managing the maintenance budget. And I'm going to quickly kind of show you what each one does. I'm not going to spend too much details on it. So I'm going to use last year's budget, 2021, so you can kind of get a better feel for what these charts look like. You do have your major maintenance versus field, and of course you still have your toggle button of include a program look or a district look, depending on who's using this report. Okay. So you have charts and graphs, allocations, encumbrances, expenditures, and then you have the breakdown below that shows by district how much is being allocated. So this is really the budget to actual that we showed you before, but it's very specific to maintenance with the way they split out their major maintenance versus their field. Okay, so I can say I want to look at only field expenditures only and apply the settings. I'm only going to get field expenditures only compared to major maintenance. Okay, So using the toggle buttons, the check boxes, these charts are interactive and it's going to change based on the filters that you've applied to them. They are also interactive here where you can take allocations off and make this in an encumbrance and expenditure report only. Okay. And you can also say include or exclude encumbrances. So I just want expenditures, I don't want encumbrances, with and without. Okay. And of course, when you change the chart above, all of the details below change as well. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and put back our major maintenance and then show you what a district looks like as well. So we'll do District 6, apply settings, and now I'm looking at one district for a snapshot in time look. For all of last year, total District 6 gives you a snapshot below, and then how they did overall with their budget to actual. Okay, encumbrances and expenditures. And then you can change your view here. You want to stay at a district? Do you want to look at it by fund and appropriation? Each view is going to change slightly. Okay, so I'll let that load. So you've got reimbursed storm federal SB1. So it's just adding the appropriation level. These are very specific HM dashboards. So again, this is going to break down the HM budget and expenditures only, and it's going to break down against the type of HM, HM1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Again, PS, OE, encumbrances, very specific to the HM program. Okay. You can change to the view as well to add in the phase by HM program, and it'll change the charts as well. Okay. So I added now the phase component. Okay. You've got sub HMs, you've got capital versus support charts and graphs, you've got maintenance by month, maintenance by quarter. Lots of different ways of slicing and dicing maintenances reports. I'm not going to spend too much time on every report, but I wanted to show you what's available to start working on the 2080 reports if you are a program manager or a budget manager for the 2080 program. Please stay tuned for an additional detailed report video on how to use maintenance specifically. Okay. All right, the last thing we're going to cover, if you're looking for FIDO data, this is all data that's prior to 2010. That's going to be our expenditure historical data. You can go in and run FIDO data. You have to know the old terminology of information. So, you can go back to 2008 and let's see, actually do it this way. Let's go back to 08 and let's put in a couple stars here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. But I just want to show you we do have historical data that comes from the FIDO database. So if you've been around for that many years and you're looking for the old historical FIDO information, feel free to come into the FIDO report here, and it's going to give you details about the vendor, the claim schedule, the invoice number, paid amount, etc. Okay, so as you can see, this is all of the old FIDO funding information, the way we used to have all of our accounting details. That's a little bit about FIDO. Feel free to play around with the two views, payment by vendor or expenditures. So especially on projects that have old historical, we do have project expenditures in here by themselves. We also have project expenditures that marry the data together. That's project expenditure reports. Please see the video on project expenditure reports for how to use all of the project reports. Okay. All right. So I didn't show you the labor dashboard, which I should have. We have a really great labor dashboard that's great for resource managers and program managers. So I will pick on, I'm going to pick on District 1 this time. And let's look at last year's information. Again, How do you want to see your data? Fiscal year, period, range, inception to date, or employee work week date. Inception to date is really more for projects, okay? Total employee stuff for projects, okay? So be careful with the views that you choose. And you also can decide if you want to see all or only overtime or reg time, okay? So let's go ahead and search. I'll show you really quickly what this dashboard looks like. As a resource manager, this is a quick way to just spot check without having to take the detailed employee labor timesheets out to Excel and re-summarize and or make your own charts and graphs. These charts and graphs will be helpful just to look at for a quick spot check on labor. Okay, so let's let those load. Okay, and I did do a very detailed video on labor on the managing our basic navigation, so you can go back to the basic navigation, and I do walk through quite a bit of these charts and graphs. Feel free, but I'm just going to do a quick, real quick high level of what this particular dashboard does. It looks at your district for your current year, how much money has been spent, reg temp, overtime, and CTO, how many employees are charging to those buckets, how many hours, total dollars. You have a total of 516 employees that have submitted timesheets since for the fiscal year 2021. So this was all of last year's data. Over here to the right, you can switch to a division look or even a unit look, depending on what you want to do. The charts will change. Let that load. And while that's loading, I'll show you this report down here. This one lets you look at it by fiscal period, so how much you've spent in each month. Charts are interactive. I only want to see overtime. I don't want anything else. You click on and off, okay? This is just now CTO and overtime. Put them back, gives you the totals. It breaks down the color codes as well, okay? You can look at it by period or by year, dollars and hours. So use your toggle buttons to switch from dollars to hours, just like above here. This is all in hours for division. I can switch to hours, dollars by type. Maybe I just want to see the reg temp and overtime broken down. I can do that. Or I want to see the hours. So again, interactive. You can even take it down to the unit level, okay? All right. You also have by position. So maybe you want to see how much money you've spent in each classification. So your civils versus your associate government AGPAs versus, a highway maintenance lead worker. So total dollars, but then broken down by classification. And here's your units up here, okay? All of this can download with this show details report. I'm just going to open that really quick so you can see what that looks like. These take a little bit of time to load, but this is going to be your Excel file that you can export to Excel, okay? And it's going to break down all of the units and the dollars. So if you want to get to the lower level details, you don't have to start from the dashboard. You can literally just go to the employee labor page that I showed you a little bit earlier and then focus from there. The details down to, the unit level. So don't feel like you have to use the dashboard to get to the details. But if you like the dashboards, the visualizations, and not have to worry about taking it to Excel to build it into a dashboard or a charts and graph, then these are very interactive for you. So you get the details in a chart view, but you also can download to Excel and it'll break down by unit, the total hours and dollars, okay? And this just comes from the employee labor page. Okay, so you've got by month, by classification, and then for your district, you have it broken down by type of money. How much did I spend in 2080 versus 2010 versus 2070? All of these tree maps are going to show how much is being spent against labor for the various programs. You can change it to PEC class if you want to bring in all those other smaller PEC classes like maintenance and traffic ops, and the chart's going to change from the parent element to the lower level PEC class. You can change it also to top 5, top 10, top 15, top 20. It's defaulted to top 15, I believe. So we'll let that load. And while that's loading, we'll take a look at this other corner here. Oh, that was fast. So here is the PEC class, and these are the breakdowns like I mentioned before. Maintenance 8220 versus, some of your 2070-20. So the PEC class details. And again, download to Excel, pull up the show details. It will export really easily for you. And then you can change your top 10 if you want to go a little higher and see a little bit more. Tree map, top 20, it'll bring in more. And then the last one of the dashboard is just by project. How many employees charged specific project IDs? And it's doing the counts for you. So, this project had 18 employees and $5,200 total, 5,200 hours, and then a total dollars of 410. Okay. All right. So your dashboards are very interactive, high level visualizations, but answering questions very quickly without having to take the raw data and build it yourself. It's here available for you. Download them to JPEG, send them in an email, send the links to your district staff, have them come in here and run it by division or run it by project or unit. Have the staff within the districts start utilizing these reports for themselves so that they don't have to wait for an Excel document to come out from the budget's office. And vice versa, if your program, you can run your whole program statewide and do the same thing. So maybe you want to look at, 2080, you can do that, and it will then break down even further for you as an entire fiscal year look. So use your filters, use your tools to help your project management resource staff manage a budget and expenditures that go against those buckets, okay? Okay, so that's a little bit about the dashboard, and just really quickly, I just want to bring your attention to when you're pulling expenditures, it really depends on what you're trying to answer. Whether you're looking at this from a fiscal year transaction, it doesn't matter what appropriation budget year it hits. Sometimes you're going to have some old appropriations that pop in when you look at a transaction. Some projects have older, 95, 96, if it's ARA, things like that. So if you want to look at an entire year of timesheet, regardless of what budget year it hits, then, just use your fiscal year transaction. But you can also zone in on specifically using this as a resource budget report. And again, like I've mentioned several times, is using the current budget year appropriations that are going to hit support so that you are managing your dollars against the correct allocated budget dollars. So just be aware, depending on what you're trying to do, sometimes you're going to just look at a transaction year, sometimes you're going to look at transaction year and appropriation support money for expenditures against your bucket. Okay, that's, I think, it for the dashboard. Last thing we're going to cover is reference tables. So as a budget manager, you can come here and look up your fund types. Okay, maybe you want to see what the fund names are. Maybe you're new and you don't know all these numbers and what they mean. The fund will let you see the classification name that's tied to the number. Okay, you've got your appropriations. You're going to see all the different appropriations. Okay. You're going to see appropriation class, Federal, how we break it down as federal, state, reimbursed. These are the acronyms that we're using to break some of the expenditures down. We do have some reports that use appropriation class. Okay. And then as a program or a district, depending on what level of details you're managing, you have districts. What units are, what districts are out there? Maybe you don't know what 70 is, and so you can come in here and look at the district list. Oh, 70 is local programs, okay? Maybe you want to look at the unit level, okay? Maybe you don't know what unit hits a district. You've seen a unit show up, but you don't know what district it belongs to. You can use the unit file. This is great for districts also to look at their whole setup. So let's pick on District 2 this time. So within District 2, all the unit codes that roll up to the various divisions. This one rolls to admin. This one rolls to planning, project delivery. So you're going to see all the division codes. You're going to see all the units, the section codes, and of course, if that unit has been active or inactive. Okay, so if you've turned off a unit from an expenditures perspective, it would say no, and it would tell you the date that it was turned off. Okay, use your filters as well. You want to search only admin District 2. Now you get a list of all the units within District 2, okay, within admin. It's a great reference table. If you're not familiar with your PEC and your PECT coding, okay, a lot of project delivery looks at the lower level, so feel free to come in and look at your PEC. It's going to break down aviation systems versus highways revenue, STIP, SHOP, bridge, all the different components of PEC, PECT, okay? And then the roll up, as you can see, 2010 rolls to PEC class 2010, element 2010. But if I was to take a look at element 2080, I'm going to see that I might have a different PEC class, right? 8100 roadbed versus flexible versus rigid, but it still rolls up to the parent element 2080. PEC class children, parents 2080. Use this as a really great reference tool for searching. You can search, maybe you want to see all of the ones for, I don't know if they have different ones. Litter, maybe. Probably type them in. Try litter. You can use wildcards. I think there should only be one, but there it is. Okay. So sometimes you might want to search with a name. You can use the star features. Okay. You can use, this one's great if you're new and you're learning your object codes, you don't know what to charge to. Object codes let you search. So I don't know what to charge on my TEC for my, mileage. You can type in mileage. Okay, and search, and you get all the object codes that belong to mileage. Was it in-state per diem, private automobile mileage, or was it overtime callback mileage, right? Sub-objects that go with it, and then if any object codes have been turned off, again, it will tell you the last time it was updated, yes or no. So if you're not familiar, get familiar with your object codes. From here, if you need to know and understand, well, how do I know what to charge my purchase to? There's a lot of mischarging statewide, so you need to go to the Chapter 5 coding manual and look up what these particular object codes are used for. And if you haven't seen that, it is located under our accounting website. Go to districts and programs and slide down to accounting. Okay. And then we want to go to the manuals and guides chapter. We want the coding manual, so we're going to click on coding manual, and here is object codes. And now I know that I want to charge 001, but I don't know for sure what it covers. I click on the table. Chapter 5 Coding Manual for Object Codes 001 says I can charge it for rental cars, fuel, toll, parking, etc. If it says does not cover, right here, right? Oops. Then you would look at the notes that go with it, right? Each object code under the coding manual gives you very specific guidelines of how this object code is allowed to be used. And there's also special instructions about when to use it to a specific phase even. So pay attention, use the coding manual so that you get your proper charging, so that your proper charging shows up. Let me go back to data link. Shows up in the right buckets of expenditures to hit against the right bucket of allocations, so that when we're looking at our expenditures of budget to actual, the expenditures are hitting the right buckets for managing those total dollars, okay? So this is a great reference tool, Object Code. Share this with new staff, have them go to the coding manual and start looking at how to charge appropriately, okay? Let's see what else. If you're looking for employee S number and name, you can look up people in the employee reporting codes if you're looking for a specific reporting code. Projects and phases, if they're open, if they're active, to charge to. SB1, you don't need to worry about that. Posting codes are great. Oh, this is a great one too, document codes. Give me a list of document codes and what do they mean, the descriptions. Sometimes you just see that. You don't know what that means. You come in here and look up doc code. Posting codes are great for resource managers and program managers. If you're seeing expenditures hit a specific posting code and you don't know what it is, you can come in and look up the posting code. For us as budget manager, resource managers, most everything's going to hit the cash 9,000, 9,001 accrued, 9,002 interest, or for the encumbrances, you're going to have encumbrance 6150, 6151 for current year program project, future year 6161 and 6160 for future year program project encumbrances. So those are a lot of the expenditures, posting codes that you might encounter in both Advantage and some of our expenditure reports, okay? Lots of different references, lots of different terminologies. Feel free to get familiar with the reference tables. And then, like I mentioned before, under the data link help menu, you have a data dictionary, you've got the frequently asked questions from historical conversion, and then the tutorials that I'm building are going to be placed here. Eventually, the user guides will go away if a video has been created. So you'll just be using the online video tutorial. Feel free to pause, run the report yourself. It's a self-taught training class. And with that, I'm going to go back to the main page here. And that pretty much sums up all of our training for resource managers and budget managers. Just know that I acknowledge that some things that may have been said in this video might be different than what your program manager is telling you, or even some processes may have changed in the past several years since I've been working on the Data Link project. So any questions regarding how to manage your budget or what your program is telling you to manage to, every program is a little different in how they manage. Some manage by the object class bucket, some manage by only appropriation and fund. It just kind of depends on what the program and the district conversations have already occurred. So please always reach out to myself for any clarification of things that I might have said in the video, or also reach out to your program if there's something different that you would like to discuss with them and have them be your guidance. With that, I hope you enjoyed the training class. Feel free to send an email to the help desk if you need additional assistance. Thank you.